Okay, today I am joined by a real Renaissance woman. In addition to being signed to the UFC, she's an artist, very well educated to the point where she was balancing a PhD with fighting in the UFC until she kind of got screwed over on that one, let's be real. Um, Pickle manufacturer, super talented in so many areas. You could almost call her a maverick. Miranda Maverick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. Very excited to chat with you again. Fighting Andrea Lee, UFC 298, February 17th, Anaheim, California. About 2 weeks out. So, how is everything going on? How is it's a very cliche question, but how is camp 2 weeks out?
Yeah, camp, it's getting exhausting. Today's the first day where I've been like training already, and I'm like, whew, all right, getting tired a lot easier with the calorie deficit and starting to drink a little bit more water, getting ready for the water load this coming week. So I'm getting ready to go to sparring right after we get off this call, actually. So it's going to be one of my last sparrings. This has been one of the longest camps I've ever had, if not the longest. So my body's feeling it, that's for sure. But I also feel very ready, feel very improved this camp, and kind of happy that I got a full camp so that I could work on improvements as we went.
Yeah, it has been quite a long layoff by some of your standards. I know last year you had a really quick turnaround between two of your fights. What developments do you feel are going to be evident when we see you in the cage this time
I
round?
think I think my wall work, I think defense on the ground, which hopefully you guys don't get to see, and then also a lot of offensive wrestling. We've just been working on a lot of things, some of which are just little bitty changes that you don't really know about until you're really in the sport. Like in certain positions, I'm like, okay, I can transition easier here, or I can defensively defend here and get out and escape easier. Just a lot of little things that we've been improving on at this stage in my career. It's not like we just go leaps and bounds better. It's just little bitty steps here and there. So that's what I've been working on.
You obviously talk about the offensive wrestling there. Andrea Lee, primarily known as a striker. I know you've talked specifically about her improving wrestling game as well. How do you evaluate the growth that she's made throughout those last few fights, especially, I guess, the Macy Barber fight, where she did land a few takedowns in that one?
Yeah, I was really impressed with that one. I think that she won that Macy Barber fight, to be honest with you. Everybody kind of craps on Andrea because she's had three losses in her last three. But I think that she won that one. So that would put her at only a one fight losing streak. And on top of that, she hasn't lost against just scum. She's lost against some of the best in the world. They're ranked in the top 10, top 12. So it's kind of unfair to say, well, Andrea's really sliding back.
Yeah, so I guess you wouldn't necessarily read too much into those last three losses when you're talking about the quality she's been in there with.
Exactly. And, I've watched her prior fights and I just try to learn from every single one. And she has improved over time. And like I said, I can tell she's been working on her grappling game, but I'm going to come in there ready for anything.
I know you said she beat Macy Barber, but you both beat Macy Barber. We can be real about that right now.
I agree. I agree.
um, but you obviously talk about stylistically. How do you feel the matchup? Obviously, it does look from the outside you're the more physical fighter, despite this growth in her game. You come across the more well-rounded fighter as well. Do you agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I think we're both very well rounded fighters. I think you kind of have to be at the level of top
Yeah.
15, but we're both well rounded. And on top of that, I feel like I am the more physical fighter in terms of going to be stronger in there, probably be a little bit more of the quote unquote bully. But we've been working on that as well, too, not being the bully so much when I
Yeah.
don't need to be, learning how to fight backwards, learning how to kind of counter fight a little better instead of just go forward and beat up people. So hopefully we'll see some of that in this fight, too.
You've both been in the UFC for a few years now. You've both kind of been around each other in the rankings as well, in terms of positionally. Are you surprised this fight maybe hasn't happened sooner?
I mean, I've tried to get to happen sooner. We both texted back and forth prior to have it happen sooner, and it always just hasn't worked out. Either she already had an opponent, or Mick found us somebody else for an opponent, or the ranking, she ended up getting somebody higher ranked, or whatever ends up happening, right? Or the timing didn't work. So I'm glad that we finally have this meeting, so to speak,
Yeah.
and it's about time it's happened.
Yeah, just one thing I want to touch on. I heard the interview you did a few days ago with Drake Riggs, where you kind of talked about the eye issues you've been having. I'm not sure how many people really do that outside of obviously your camp people around you, but just those optical concussions just sound so crazy. One of the more insane things I've heard about a fighter dealing with. The thing that came to my mind here and that is, I guess I guess the poster boy for kind of eye issues. That's a weird phrase, but the poster boy for eye issues has been Michael Bisping. He's obviously been around your fights, I assume. You might have had fighter meetings with him. Have you had the chance to kind of talk with him and get some advice about this?
No, I really haven't ever talked to him in person. So I've heard people say, like, oh, it's similar and this and that. And I'm like, well, I hope I don't go completely blind in one eye like he
Yeah,
supposedly did. But it is an issue. And I don't think he continued to fight with a torn retina that could go in and out. And unfortunately, that's kind of where I'm at is I've gotten it patched up and everything. I'm good to go. But those optical concussions, I'm very at risk for. And, it should be public knowledge as of now with how many times I've talked about it and stuff. But it's easy for me to get hit along the bones and stuff, and my optical nerve to basically swell up. And when it does that, it just shuts off my eye. And that's pretty much what happens. Not regularly, I wouldn't say, but if I get clocked a few times. And so I've had to kind of learn to fight through that and keep going regardless. And as my corners say, to be more communicative with them when that happens.
yeah, yeah. I know you talked about that happening in the fight with Jasmine as well. Yeah, you've got so much going on around outside the cage. We talked about stuff at the start, but I know you work with Hershey as well. In addition to that, you were told before your UFC career that you might have to retire at that point. With this still being an issue, is that something you've ever had to have that conversation with yourself about? That whether you do want to continue?
Yeah, every fight that I have any kind of eye issue in, and from talking to my family, it's basically been a discussion where there is no like question about it. That if I have another torn retina, I will be done.
Yeah,
It's kind of a decision we've made, and one that kind of is hard to accept. But if I end up having another torn retina, it's just not worth the high risk of me going blind for this sport when I want so much other things in life, right? I want to be a parent that can see my children, and it's just not worth the risk to have my eye hurt again. So that's kind of where my family's at with it and what we've decided. But hopefully that doesn't happen, especially anytime soon, and I can keep going with the surgeries that I've had prior and keep my eyes healthy.
yeah. Of course, fingers crossed. We never have to see anything like that. No pun intended. Yeah, Raquel Pennington. You've obviously trained with her a lot as of late. Teacher as well, of course. Seeing her win the belt after that journey she's been on, what was your reaction?
Oh, it was exciting. We were sitting in the living room. I had a couple friends over, and me and my husband were watching, and it was just really exciting. It was a grinding out fight. It wasn't the most exciting fight in the world, but she got it done. I've talked to her a little bit since. She's healthy. She's coming back. Had a couple little bangs and bumps and concussion afterwards, of course, but she's back, going to be supporting me at the fight too. So
Yeah,
I'm really happy for her, excited for her to bring that belt back to Denver and yeah, watch her. Well, I guess Colorado Springs technically, but watch
yeah,
her kind of relish in that.
yeah. Of course. I guess following on from that fight, there's been a lot of people criticizing the bantamweight division, the depth in that division. Women's MMA as a whole has received some criticism as well from that fight. How does it make you feel when you see comments just tearing down women's MMA, and if you see any of that stuff?
Yeah, women's MMA as a whole, I completely disagree. I think that it's becoming bigger and bigger. The 115 and 125-pound division are very strong. They're trying to get people new into the 135-pound division. I will say it's been stagnant over time in terms of there's just not that many in it. The top 15 basically is the 15 girls in the division. That's the whole joke that goes around, right? And so they need to work on getting new blood in there, but it's not like they don't exist. Like they're out there. We need to just keep finding people and bringing them into the UFC. It's just that women's MMA is still starting. Like we have to look at the history of the sport. MMA as a whole is not very old, right? And women's
Yeah.
MMA has only been around like 10 years. So for a 10-year-old sport, I'd say it's doing pretty dang good.
Of course, of course. I guess this 125 division, obviously your division, is one of the deeper divisions in the sport, let alone just in the women's divisions. Have you considered possibly moving up to 35 as it may be a quicker route to the belt? No?
Absolutely not. I'm very small. Not very small, but I'm short, right?
Yeah.
I'm 5'3.5". I'm already short for the 125 division pretty much. And although I'm very thick, very stocky, it's just not a smart move to move up to 135. I've gone against plenty of girls that are 135ers, like Aspen Ladd, like Raquel Pennington. A few of these girls that are true 135ers, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. Like, it's just a big size difference, and 10 pounds means a lot when somebody rehydrates and gets on top of you in a fight.
Yeah, now you say that, like, obviously we've got people like Holly Holm, Kayla Harrison now. That's a big difference, right?
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah. Obviously Kayla, new to the UFC. You have done a little bit of work with her in the past, I believe. What was your reaction when you heard that news?
I'm really shocked about the 135. You know,
Yeah.
I could see a 145 fight happening, but 135, I'm almost concerned for her. You know, the people are concerned about her weight cuts, or they should be concerned, you know, and I know that the casuals don't really know much about weight cuts to begin with. And some people are like, oh, I don't really think it's that serious of a thing. And I'm like, it's a very serious thing. Like, she's walking around already very lean, very muscular at 155, right?
Yeah.
And for her to cut 20 pounds of muscle, because it can't be any more water than what she already cuts, basically. She's going to have to lose muscle. She already doesn't have fat to lose. It's going to be very hard for her, but I hope that she is right and she has a great nutritionist and she's able to get that done.
Yeah. Looking at the top of the 125 division, obviously Grasso with the belt. Do you think Valentina will get that next shot against her again, or do you think it will be someone else? Probably the winner of Blanchfield and Furo.
I hope they don't have a trilogy. I don't think it's great for fans or the entertainment industry as a whole. You know, trilogies get boring. I do not think that Valentina doesn't deserve it. I think she deserves another fight for the title for sure. I mean, that last one was controversial enough. The first one was kind of a fluke ordeal, I think. So, even though Alexa's very talented, I do not think she'll have the belt by the end of 2024. And I think that the winner of Erin Blanchfield and Manon should get to fight for the title next. And my guess is it's going to be Erin.
Yeah. Just one more recent fight I want to talk to you about. Jasmine Jasdovicius and Priscilla Cajuera. They fought on the last pay-per-view. I know what you think about Priscilla from when you fought, but what do you think of how that played out?
I thought it was ridiculous that ever got to become a fight. I think they're trying to hype up Jasmine, which, you know, it makes sense. She was fighting in Canada, really wanting a fight, but to give her Priscilla, who not only is not ranked, but not even close to being ranked now. Like, she wasn't even close to being ranked when I fought her, and I only got to fight her because it was a very short notice fight. And then Jasmine to get booked and have a full fight camp basically to fight her. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, we already know what's going to happen. Of course, she's the favorite by however many times she was, you know? And it was just, I thought it was ridiculous that fight got to be a matchup.
Yeah. Finally, I mean, we've talked some fight stuff there. Let's talk some pickles. Why? How? Give us the background. Prowler Pickles is the brand.
I grew up on a ranch. I grew up knowing how to homestead, everything from making our own butter to making our own vacuum sealed vegetables in the garden to also knowing how to pickle. And so this past year, when I was getting ready to go home for Christmas, I was pickling for my family. Like, I was just making a few jars to go take back to them to stock them up for a few years. And I made a story about it on my Instagram, and I had a lot of people that were like, hey, would you sell a jar? Would you sell a jar? And I was like, eh. And I thought about it and talked about it with my family, and I went ahead and made a little post that was like, if I decided to make pickles, who would buy some? And got a ton of responses, and I was like, why not? Like, this looks like a pretty open opportunity. And amusingly, my family had already discussed potentially doing a pickle business at some point, you know, for the past few years, just because it's one of those spots that there's only a few brands out there that make anything worth a crap, and we know how to do all these different flavors. And I was like, I feel like this is like God's sign of, there you go, here's an opportunity, here's where it happened, just go for it. And so I did, and I have. And right now I only have, well, not only, but mainly only have online sales. And I have 10, I'll have 11 flavors by end of this week, hopefully. And yeah, I'm selling them online. Prowlerpickles.com. You can get pints, quarts, even half gallons of different spears and slices of many different flavors. I offer spicy, I offer sweet, sour, and then like traditional dill and garlic dills. So check it out.
Yeah, I'm not like a big pickle person. My girlfriend's a big pickle person. I'm not.
Okay.
If I was gonna, I don't know if do you ship to the UK?
I sure do. I've already sent 2 packages out to the UK.
Perfect. If I was going to order something from my girlfriend, what would you recommend?
Ooh, well, does she like spicy?
Not really.
Okay, not really. I would try like does she like sweet pickles?
More, she's sweet would be all right, but I think more just sour. Do you have
Okay,
do
so
you have
try the
sour?
sour dill. Yeah, try the sour dill and then maybe try the regular dill or garlic dill. I think she'd like it. And I would try bread and butter if I were you too. Like maybe just get a little sample pack put together, but message me if you want it shipped to the UK so I can get you taken care of.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that. I'll have a look into that. I do want to just quickly, we're running out of time here. I'm not going to take up too much time. I want to talk about the branding side of things in MMA because I feel like you do a lot more than most fighters to try and stand out and stay memorable with the fans. Part of it's the name, right? But obviously, we see the sunglasses, the music, all
Yeah,
things that can make you stand out over another fighter. How important do you think that is?
I think it's really important to have some kind of persona in MMA. Most people actually get popular and stuff by talking about controversial subjects and by being a-holes, basically. That's the way that you get the most fans, right? Or by just
Yeah.
being crazily winning all these fights. Like Valentina, even though she's not much of a crap talker, she doesn't get out there on social media too much. She's still really popular because she wins. She was such a dominant champion. Same way with Nunes. But for me, I'm like, I'm going to stay clean. I'm going to try to stay with my morals and values that I have and still make a name in this sport, make a name in my life. And so I try to stick to those Christian values and still do something. So for me, it's Miranda Maverick, obviously. So I try to go with the whole Top Gun theme Maverick
Yeah.
as of late. So keeping on that train. And I might even be sporting a cowboy hat for this Andrea Lee fight to kind of represent the country girl background. Be cowgirl versus country girl.
Looking forward to that. Looking forward to see that walkout in that case. And obviously, you do a lot of signed pictures, signed cards on your website, which it feels like a lot of fighters are missing the trick on.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird. I've had other fighters and, young kids that are up and coming whose parents want to talk to me about promotability and stuff. And I'm always like, just take opportunities. And they're like, well, why don't more fighters? Like, there's got to be some reason. And I'm like, they're lazy. That's all there is to it. Like, just like any normal person, it's like anyone could make pickles, right? But they don't want to. It's not convenient for them, right? And it takes setting up a store, it takes spending the money first and having the creativity to get these websites started to make it happen, making connections, and also taking away free time or time that you get to sleep or time that you get to rest from training to do these things. And I choose for now to hustle as much as I can instead of taking that rest time so that I can have time, hopefully, in the future with my family.
Yeah, unlike the signed pictures things, obviously you sell signed pictures on your website. I'm a big pro wrestling fan. Like at any level of pro wrestling, the most basic piece of merch that a wrestler will have is a signed picture. Yet in MMA, no one does it. It's kind of crazy to me.
I know it is. And it's funny, I will be announcing for the first time on your interview. So there you go, you get
Yeah.
something. I just started and published my new website. So it's the updated version of my old one. It's fearthemaverick.com, not .net. And so it's on Squarespace versus WordPress like I had. And it's kind of just the updated website, and it's going to have it to where people can sign up for seminars and stuff online along with all of my products that I had, plus a few new ones. So go check it out, fearthemaverick.com.
Oh, perfect. Great to get that exclusive. We'll definitely have that linked in the bio and whenever this goes out. And
Thank you.
just finally, February 17th, Anaheim, UFC 298. When yourself and Andrea Lee step into the cage, give us the hard sell. What can fans expect?
I'm going to go in there, kind of put it all together, hopefully pepper her up with punches. I hope that I, end up rocking her and getting a TKO standing. But the goal is take it down from there, use ground and pound, get a TKO or submission finish. She's a hard girl to put down, so I doubt it's going to be round one, maybe not even round two. I'm ready to fight the whole 3 rounds if I need to, but I'm thinking it'll be a finish in round 3.
Perfect. Very excited to see the fight. Thanks for taking the time today. I know you're very busy in the lead up to the fight, so I'm very appreciative that you are taking the time for this one. Best of luck.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.